Welcome once again, everybody, to customizing the Jupiter to fit your students' needs and yours as well, depending on if you're a user of the Jupiter. We're going to learn a whole lot today about making changes to make the Jupiter work best for you. We have two presenters today, beginning with Justine Taylor, who is the Low Vision Product Manager at APH, and Mike Wood, the Strategic Accounts Manager, Education for Vispero. So they will be taking you on a tour of the Jupiter today, helping you learn about a lot of the features, maybe teaching you some things you didn't know. Let's talk about our learning objectives. What are we going to do here today? We're going to learn how to customize the zoom ratio depending on your students' needs. We'll discover the many different color contrast options included with the Jupiter. We'll learn how to use the 3-in-1 camera to view near, far, or self-viewing with magnification. Quite a bit of things that we'll go through here today. Let's talk about some things that could be some challenges for you or for your students. It can be difficult to find the best color combination for the task at hand due to the plethora of options, and there are quite a number of them, as we'll see. Users may need help finding the best starting magnification level. There are a lot of them to choose from as well, so picking the right one is extremely important, so we'll help you with that today. With all the options available, users may need guidance in customizing a device to best suit their needs. It's the one thing about having a lot of choices. Sometimes it's hard to figure out where to start and what's best for you. And finally, complicated documents such as busy worksheets or newspapers may be difficult to read without something to limit the visual clutter. Now, with all that in mind, let's turn this over to Justine first, who's going to get us started.
Hey everyone, I'm just gonna introduce the Jupiter and just give you a little brief description of it. The Jupiter is a portable desktop magnifier that is very easy to use in the classroom, in the workplace, or at home. It has distance, near, and self-viewing with a rotating camera. That's a very high, powerful camera, and it's very portable. It folds and can collapse and makes it very portable. So those are some of the things we're going to review and look at in more detail as we go through the webinar. We can go to the next slide. And we'll let you know what is in the box. So when you get the Jupiter out of the box, it's very easy to all the things that you get in there. You get the Jupiter, of course, and you get a carrying case, and you'll get the charging cord, and the user manual will come in the box with the Juno, or the Jupiter, sorry.
And I always confuse those two, Justine, because APH products. And then I was just going to say, who's that famous person in that photo there on that slide? She looks familiar. I think I know her.
That is me. Yeah, sorry, I've been doing Juno and Jupiter webinars, so let's just stick with the Jupiter today. So that is what you get in the box. And then the next slide here, we'll go over the control panel. So
sure thing. So I wanted to cover, so this was the easiest way. I figured that people could use these slides later on as kind of a resource. And then also I figured that this might be the easiest way to really just go over the product rather than trying to show it with a live camera and all this, because it's pretty easy and simple to use. And that's what I love about the Jupiter. So going across the front of the screen, at the bottom of the screen, going from left to right, there's 7 buttons. And a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory, but I'm going to go through them from left to right. So the first button on the left is the power button. You're basically just going to press that for 2 seconds and that's going to turn it on or turn it off. The next button is your, I call it more of the brightness. The technical term is image optimizer wheel, but really that's just going to do providing you brightness for the screen itself. So that's not going to change the LED lighting that's underneath the Jupiter, but that will change the screen brightness. And then it also has another option that if you press that button in and hold it, it will turn or toggle on and off your autofocus. So that comes in handy when you're doing certain things underneath where you might want to shut the focus off. Might be when you're writing sometimes, you might want to shut autofocus off so that it doesn't focus on your hand and it just stays focused on maybe the paper. But that's something that you will want to customize and play around with a little bit to see what the best use case scenario is there. The next button, number 3, so this is the third one in from the left, is your snapshot button. Call it the camera button. When you press that button, it actually just does a freeze frame. And the freeze frame doesn't store an image, it just freezes it. So it puts a pause kind of on the screen. And one of the cool features with that, and I will show it later when we do the live demo aspect, is you can actually freeze an image and then further magnify in. So you can zoom into that even further. And when you do that, what ends up happening is you can then pan the image using button number 7, which is the far right-hand button, the super function key. So I'll cover how to do that later on. The middle button, which is the one that most of the time you're drawn to anyway, it's center on the screen, is your zoom wheel. So you're going to rotate that to the right to zoom in, to the left to zoom out. So that's your increased magnification or decreased magnification. The different magnification levels on this, they go anywhere from like 1.2x magnification all the way up to 250x. And that's when you are screenshotting something and then further magnifying in. So you've got a giant range of magnification. Again, we'll go into that a little bit more here later too. And then to the right of the magnification button or your zoom wheel is button number 5, and that is your color mode button. So what that does is that toggles you through the preset color choices that you have as far as your high contrast color modes. And we'll show you how to customize that. So that just cycles you through a couple of your presets that you have chosen. If you want to get back to a natural color mode quickly and easily, press button number 6. That's going to bring you right back to natural color, which is your true color. That button also has a little secret, function that if you press and hold that, it actually does a find function, and you'll get to see that live here in a second as well, or a little bit later. So that find function is nice, and Justine and I were actually talking about that earlier because it's a nice feature to show, because if you're looking at a sheet of text and you are magnified in, say at 25x or something like that, you're only seeing a small portion of that page, right? If you press and hold button number 6, it zooms you all the way out and lets you actually find where you want to be on the page. Release that button and it zooms you right back into your preferred magnification level. And then button number 7 on the far right-hand side, that is your super function key. What that button does is allows you to scroll the image when you have it frozen using that button number 3, the freeze frame button. Or if you press in on button number 7, the super function key, you actually can then get guidelines or masking. And when you use that button, you then can press up or down to decide, where you want it on the screen. You can also rotate that button to increase or decrease the size or move it around. So you'll see a couple different ways to use that button as we get further on in the presentation. But it's pretty simple. 7 buttons. You don't have to press and hold them to do, those other functions. But if you know they're there, it's nice that they are available. But it's pretty simple and easy to use.
And then Mike, if you want to mention button number 4, the zoom wheel, if you press and hold that, that's how you access the menus, which you also will show a bit later.
Which is, that's key. Thanks, Justine. That is definitely key. So to access all of the fun stuff we're going to show later, you press and hold that. I missed the most important one, which is to access the menu. So thank you.
Yeah. So it's really really simple, easy.
It is. It really is. And, and that's the one thing that I'm told, gosh, when this first released, I had one of the very first units that were available, and I had flown out to many, many places, but I was traveling like crazy. And it was exciting because everywhere that I went, people were falling in love with it. And they loved the fact that it's simple, easy to use. It collapses, it's pretty lightweight, and yet it's so powerful. I mean, the camera image, as you'll see in a little bit, is great. I mean, it's just such a high definition camera. So yeah, it's good stuff. Next slide, please, Paul. And I saw, by the way, hey, Mom, my mom said hello to everybody in the chat. My mom usually pops into a lot of my sessions. So on the screen now, we have an image of the Jupiter from the backside. And I liked this because it just kind of gives you an overview of what you're going to see and what options you have on the back, really. So at the top, it's highlighting the screen. It's an LCD screen. It's a 13-inch monitor on this. Number 2 is drawn and pointing over to the camera. And as Justine mentioned earlier, that camera does rotate up and down. And you do that by turning button number 3, or the camera adjustment wheel, which really isn't a button, it's a knob. So you would rotate the camera using that. Sometimes students like to just reach around as well and rotate the camera by the camera housing. You can do that too. It's not going to harm anything. It just makes it easy to have it on the right-hand side. And next slide, I think, goes into our more of the other, yeah. So same image of the Jupiter. This just shows you on the camera, and this is a user error that happens often, I think. So on this, you've got a reading lens. So that lens, many of you out there that are familiar with CCTVs, when you're doing close-up magnification, you might want to have, you do want to have that lens closed. But when you're doing distance magnification, you want to open that camera lens up, and then that's going to give you your best quality distance view. I remember first time I used this, I even forgot that lens was there, and I was zooming in at a distance, and I was like, why is it so blurry? What's going on? And a colleague of mine was like, you've got to open that lens, Mike. And I was like, oh, that's funny. I knew that was there. And I'm sure, Justine, have you had people call before? Have you found that that's like typical user error?
Yeah.
So remember that that's there. And then behind that middle pane on the Jupiter are the LED lights. And then on the very back bottom, if you were looking at it from the back side, it's on the right-hand side. If you're looking at the Jupiter from the front, on the back left-hand side is where you're going to plug in your power outlet. And that basically easy plug-in. This is battery powered, so you get about 5 hours battery life. But when you do need to charge it, that's where that DC power jack is located. So next slide, please.
Before we move on, Mike,
Yeah.
Roz asked in the chat, how do you open the lens? When you refer to opening the lens, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so it's actually just a little flip that the camera itself has kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a hinged lens on it.
Yeah, like a lens cap thing. It's actually like a little window. It just like you just slide.
Yep, so you just open it up, and it's latched on there. So it's latched on at the top, and you're just going to rotate it, and then it stays open when you're doing distance view. Good question, Betsy Ann. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next slide.
So this slide here just shows you the different ways, first off, that you can move that monitor. It's fully adjustable. So you can move that monitor up, down, and tilt it, all different ways. And then this is showing you the camera. So when you're doing reading mode, you're going to have the camera facing down. When you're doing distance, you're going to rotate the camera, obviously, to face distance. And then that's when you're going to flip down that lens. And then 3 would be self view, and you would rotate it to look at you. You would keep the lens closed on that view. And you do have to move the monitor down so that the camera can view you. I will not scare all of you today and show you, self-facing, but it's great because, it's basically a mirror where you can zoom in and get really close. So if you're, plucking eyebrows, applying makeup, I use it to style my hairdo every day. It looks great, you can see. And so it's really nice because you've got that high definition camera that you can do that self-facing. And I will tell you, I was at a Pennsylvania Braille challenge a couple years ago, pre-COVID, and I had the Jupiter on my table. And I'll never forget, there was this young, student that came over. She was actually kind of working the Braille challenge as kind of a mentor. She was a student, though, a high school student. And she came over and she checked out the Jupiter, and she was low vision herself. And she was literally jumping up and down because she rotated it and was able to zoom in and was looking at her face. And she was jumping up and down at my table, so excited about this Jupiter. And it was the sweetest and cutest little moment to see this high school student get so excited about a low vision device that, I'm sure she's used many throughout her years in school, but, she just loved it. And so those are the fun experiences we get when we're out there showing it. Next slide, please. So we're going to show this live in a little bit as well, but I did want to have this again just as a reference so that if anybody prints these slides out, these are good to have. Earlier I mentioned there was a specific button that allowed you to get to guidelines and masking. That button was button number 7, which was your far right-hand side. And when you press and hold that, it allows you to choose your guideline or masking function. And then if you rotate it clockwise, it just kind of toggles you through whether or not it's going to be a horizontal guideline, vertical guideline, whether you're going to have horizontal or vertical masking. And then rotating it clockwise actually will move that up or down. So you can rotate it and move it up or down the screen. And then you can also increase or decrease the thickness of all of those, whether it be the guideline or the masking. So you can really limit and customize how much you've got on the screen. And I think that comes in super handy. It's one of those features. I did see that in the poll, some people said they use this. And Justine and I were chatting when we were going over the slides. We were saying, this is like a key feature that sometimes people forget that they forget that it's built into the Jupiter. And it's nice because, you think about tracking purposes when you're reading. Justine, have you used these features yourself before? Or have you shown these to students?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It really helps you keep your place. If it's a busy worksheet or there's a lot of like clutter on the page, you can just block all that out with a mask and just zoom right into the section that you want to look at. Or with the line, it helps you just keep your place as you move through the text. And it's a really helpful feature for a lot of people. So
yeah, I agree. And years back, say again.
Oh, I was just glad that it's on this device. Like it's a hidden one that people forget about. But so yeah, it's really
agreed. And it's on a lot of the handheld stuff too that we you mentioned earlier, the Juno, and the Video Mag HD has it as well.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time that just this is a great feature not only for low vision kiddos, but also if you've got students that have any reading or writing disabilities. The tracking aspect of this is really powerful. So I'm glad that it's built into there as well. And so now I think next slide, we jump back over to Paul with a poll question.
All right, so let's answer this question. This is a true or false question about a topic that we've been discussing. So true or false, you can customize the size of your line and mask with the Jupiter. True or false, you can customize the size of your line and mask. As you're answering this question, this is a great time to throw out any comments or ask any questions in the chat.
And I was going to say, we've got a very alert crowd out there. They're all answering correctly from what I see thus far. And so that's a good thing. That means they were listening. And I would love to, if anybody out there, there was a good percentage of you that own the Jupiter already. It was 68% that already own a Jupiter, I'd love, 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 love for you to share in the comments, you know, some success stories that you've had or comments or anything. And of course, we'll open up for questions later too, but feel free to drop something in the chat. We just started. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
Oh, no,
Go
go ahead.
You. Well, we keep waiting for the other. I was going to say, while we're waiting for anybody to post in the chat, I was going to go ahead and close our poll, so I can read out those results. Mike was correct. 100% of you are on target and are listening in on this conversation and remembering what you're learning. So, true or false, you can customize the size of your line and mask. That is true. So I'm going to end that poll.
Got a top-notch class here today, Justine.
Yes.
All right. And without anything in the chat, I think we can move on, and we'll always come back later and check out anything we might have missed.
Okay, I'll jump in here with this next slide and tell you all a little bit about the contrast colors. So the Jupiter has a ton of color contrast options. And like, if you remember back to the slide with the control panel, if you press that color mode button, I think it was button 5, if you press that, it'll cycle you through all these different color contrast options. And I think by default, there's 8. And then Mike will show you this later in the live demo. You can access the different contrast options through the menu. So if you press and hold that zoom wheel, you'll access the menus, and then that is where you can go in and choose your different color contrast options. And there's up to 35 different color contrast options, and you can customize and choose which color options work best for you, or your student or client or whoever you're working with. And you can pick their favorites or your favorite colors. And once you select those, when you press the color mode button, they'll cycle you through. So you can add as many up to 35, or you can have, 5 or 2. If there's only a couple that you really like to use, you can just press that button and cycle between all the color contrast options that you like, depending on what task you're doing. You can quickly get to that color contrast option. And then, like Mike showed earlier with those buttons, there's a natural color button, which is really nice and handy, because if you're looking at pictures or anything in a book that has pictures or photographs or anything that has color that you want to look at, you can just press that natural color button and see it in the true life color mode. So very, very powerful device. This is one of the devices I have seen that have the most amount of color options, which is really, really nice feature. So
I like that you can customize it, because I'll never forget years back, I had a student that wanted, they were using software, but they switched and wanted like pinks and purples and all this. And I was like, wow, that's, really it was like, it looked like Barbie Dream House, and I said to the mother, I said, let them try it, let her play around with it and see if it works first, right? First thing when a kid gets a new product or messes around with a new program on the computer, they're going to play around with all the settings and have fun with it. But once that, wears off, they actually start using it. And so the funny thing was, the student did all that with these pinks and purples. And then a couple of weeks later, the mother called me and she just said, this is working so great. For the first time in all of her schooling, I don't have to sit with her to do her homework. She's able to do it on her own. And I said, this is what we want, right? You wanted the independence. And it was just, that's when it was just like, heart touching at that point, because I'm like, it would have driven me nuts having the pinks and purples, but it worked for her. And I said to the mother, if it works for her, let her do it, you know?
Whatever gets
Yeah.
them to use it.
Yes. Yep. So, but 35 is a lot of options. And I'll show you how to obviously customize that so you can cut them out.
Mhm.
I did want to say, so I saw two things in the chat, Justine, if I can take a second to, so Nancy, thanks for your comment. So Nancy said she recently started using it with a kindergarten student with low vision, and they were having trouble focusing it when using distance view. So I wonder if that is with that camera lens. And Nancy, you can feel free to drop that in the chat if you have flipped that lens up, because it should not be struggling at all to do focusing in distance unless that camera lens is closed, and then you are going to have that issue. But if you open that lens up when you're doing distance, it's shouldn't at all. The full high definition camera on that gets great image quality. And then Mary Kelty said, I used Quota to purchase one for a student in 2nd grade. She has had so much success that the school district purchased 2 more for other students, and they are seeing success too. That's awesome. That's great, Mary.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's really, really good.
Yeah, and that's fun. And I know that we were talking earlier about the student that there's the video of on the APH website. And if anybody hasn't seen it, there's a young lady, Nellie, that was one of the first to try the Jupiter. I flew out to her school district when I had one of the first demo units available. And I was flying out, showing it to TVIs all over the country. And she was one of the first to order it. And the same thing happened in her district. They ordered one for her. And then the next year they ordered a couple more. And she, like I said, she was, highlighted or spotlighted in one of the APH videos. You guys flew out and did a little video with her and her teachers. And, she just, she excelled extremely well with it. So then we've got Emily. I have a student who says that at times the image on the screen flips upside down. Any idea why that might happen? That's a new one, Emily. Yeah, I have not had it ever flip upside. The only thing I can think of is if they're rotating the camera. If they're rotating the camera too far towards themselves, the camera could be switching into the self
Different
view.
viewing mode. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've got it like at a weird half angle or something, like that knob.
Yeah. So make sure that when they're, because what happens is when they rotate it too far, like if you're rotating the knob too far forward, where you're rotating the camera to do self view, it then is going to flip the image because it's going to do a mirror image, because obviously when you're looking, right? So that could be, I'm betting that's what it is, Emily. Check and see, because oftentimes it's nice that you can move the camera a little bit to pan, underneath, but if you rotate it too much, the gyrometer or whatever, is that the proper term for what's inside there that knows when it's flipping, it switches the camera so that it's then mirror image for self viewing. And that's the only one that flips, because in distance, it doesn't have to flip. So that, I'm guessing that could be it, Emily, but reach out to us separately if you want as well. I'll drop my email in the chat, and I think that would be a good one to check. And if it's not that, then obviously we'll figure out what it could be, and we'll get it fixed. And that's my email, mwood@vispero, vispero.com. And you're welcome. Thank you.
I think we have a poll question next.
We do.
All right. So the next question is, how many different high contrast color combinations are available on Jupiter? 15, 20, 24, or 35? How many different high contrast color combinations are available on Jupiter? You can use as many of them as you see fit, but how many do you have to choose from? 15, 20, 24, or 35?
And again, this is a great moment to drop any questions in the chat, any user experience in the chat, or anything you'd like to see in the live demo in the chat.
Just as long as you don't say self-facing where I have to zoom in on my face. I'm drawing the line.
Oh, you can bite the bullet on it.
Like those magnifying mirrors, right? It's like, what? I don't want to see myself at 10x. I don't want to see myself at 20x. Woo!
All right, and just like the last poll, folks are really quick in filling it out. And your mom, which hopes she's right. She hopes she got it correct.
I hope
She's
you were
listening in.
I hope she was.
For the question, how many different high contrast color combinations are available on Jupyter? We had more of a split crowd than I imagined. We have 13% who thought 15 options, 3% thought 20, 10% thought 24 options, and 73% selected 35 options. Now, which was the correct response?
Justine?
35. There's 35 you can choose from. I might have tricked them by saying there was a lower amount with the default. There was 8 defaults settings, and then you can go in there and you can choose from 35 different options and set those. And we'll show you how to do that during the live demo. But yep, 35 color contrast options.
And we've had some other comments come in the chat. So any good carrying cases out there? The neoprene case is a little flimsy to send out with middle school students. It also doesn't have a strap on it. So any advice, Mike or Justine?
Yeah, Mike and I, we were talking about this earlier as well. And there is an optional bag that you can get in, it's on the product page of the APH website. And it references you to our transition tote bag. And that's the backpack that we have. And it fits, the Jupyter fits perfectly inside that backpack. So if you want an alternative bag, you can definitely get the transition tote backpack is what it's called. And it's just a regular backpack that fits, specifically fits assistive technology for students with visual impairments. It's a backpack that fits, a cane, and it fits a bunch of different technology devices in there with different pockets and all these different compartments and padded sections for all of our tech. So like I said, the Jupyter fits perfectly in that backpack. So I think that's a good way to haul it around.
Yeah, that's a nice option. And then I know that we've got some similar products that Vispero produced, and we have some roller bags, or we've recommended some roller bags, which are also nice because, this isn't that heavy. I mean, it's like 8.5, a little over 8.5 pounds, I think. And
yep, we're going to go over that the next slide.
Oh yeah. Oh, perfect. Sorry. I'm stealing your thunder, Justine. Sorry. And sorry about that. So, but rolling bags also are nice just because, you're saving your back. And so there are some of those options, but I was really happy when APH did test it with the transition bag, just because, again, like you mentioned, Betsy, and it doesn't have a strap. I did see someone mention that a strap would be helpful. The neoprene case is nice if you're just carrying it, around a little bit, but it would be nice to have a bag with straps or handle.
Great. And I've dropped the link to the transition tote in the chat. And thanks to Roger for dropping the link to the Jupyter in the chat.
Thanks, Roger. And then I also saw Melinda said that they have a first grade low vision student that's blossomed with independence since working, or independent work, I should say, while using the Jupyter. So that's awesome, Melinda. Good stuff. You know what? So side comment before I go back to you, Justine, sorry. So Freedom Scientific does a Student of the Month program. And for those of you out there that don't know of this program, Justine and I chatted about this a couple of days ago. And I think Betsy Ann and I chatted about this at the CSUN conference. And so Freedom Scientific, and I'll see if I can put the link in here in in the chat here in a second. Once I won't be able to multitask and type and talk at the same time. So the program is, if you have a student that's using the Jupyter, the VideoMag HD, or the Juno, which are products that we worked with the American Printing House for the Blind on developing and whatnot and supporting, you can actually nominate one of your students by going to freedomscientific.com/student of the month, all one word. And it's super cool because there's videos of students on there that have already won it. Thanks, Betsy Ann. And I want to get more low vision kiddos on there. We've had a ton of blindness software and hardware students. We do have, I think, 1 or 2 low vision kiddos, but I want to get more. And the student gets a $500 Amazon gift card if they're chosen and selected for this. So it's awesome. And it's no cost to anybody. And the teachers get interviewed. They get to chat a little bit with us. And then we interview the student. We interview their parents if they want to be, interviewed, and just share how they're using the technology and how it's helped them. And it's exciting. The students love sharing their stories. I'm sure they love the $500 Amazon gift card because I sure as heck would. And so it's just a really cool program. And yeah, so please share it far and wide. I mean, every time I get a chance to share that information, I do, just because it's cool. So back to you, Justine. Sorry, I stole your thing there.
No, thank you. I'm so glad you shared about that program. I think it is so great. So I'm really glad that you let everybody know about that and put the link in the chat for everyone to access it, so we can get some more low vision users on there and see how these devices are helping them. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So now we're going to give you the specifications. So as Mike has mentioned, this slide just shows you all the specs of the products. So you've got a 13-inch full high definition monitor. It's 8.62 pounds to be precise, and the magnification ranges from 1.8x to 150x, and there's a 5-hour battery life, and there's an HDMI output, so you can connect this to an external monitor. So that slide just gives you all the details for your information. And now we're going to have the live demo, which everyone has been waiting for.
Yes. And I'm using that HDMI output with a video capture card for my PC. So it converts it over, and then I just plug it into a USB port on my laptop. And what I'm going to do is get my mug off of this and switch over to the USB capture card here. And now we've got under here, we've got the image of workbook. So I have
you can see it.
Spanish workbook that I have underneath this. And you'll see you've got lots of space underneath this too, which is nice. So if you have something that is a little larger, it will fit nicely. Easy. I'm just twisting the zoom for magnification there. And you've got your zooming in really close there just to show you. You'll even see, you can see the print marks on that of how it was printed. The camera on this is phenomenal. And that's not even all the way zoomed in. And we can really, really get in there. And, it's phenomenal.
It's like a microscope.
Yeah, seriously. It seriously is. So I wanted to show a couple different things. I'll show some materials underneath it after I go through the functionality of it, just so that I make sure we cover the important things. So first off and foremost, I talked about the first button being your power button, number 1, right? And then your next button is going to be your image optimizer wheel. And so you'll notice here, I can increase or decrease, and that's going to be the screen brightness. So you're not going to see a difference on there because I'm actually pushing the image through to my laptop. So we're not using the monitor itself that's on there. Mm-hmm. If I press and hold button number 2, that image optimizer wheel, it shuts my autofocus off. So Janice is saying she's got a black screen. Does everyone else see my screen or no?
I can.
Got
see
you.
this.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it fine.
All right, cool. I'm not sure then, Janice, what could be going on there. You might be viewing like a camera. So maybe if you're using an iPhone or something, you might want to swipe to make sure that you're on the right focus screen. So I shut my autofocus off, and then pressing and holding that button in again, which is button number 2, it turns the autofocus back on. Button number 3 is your freeze frame. Now I want to show you actually using this with some text, and I think this is super cool. So I'm throwing up a newspaper under there, and earlier I was saying how small this font is. You can see by like the tip of my finger, this is probably like size 9 font, and
Yeah, probably 8 or 9.
super small. So we're zooming into that, and I'm only going to zoom in this far right now. I'm going to do a freeze frame. So I pressed that 3rd button in, the camera button. And now from there, I can actually zoom in even further if I wanted. And now using that far right-hand button, which is that super function key, I'm going to press that to the left, press it up, press it to the right. And you'll notice that it just scrolls right around this image, which is really nice because this allows you to get in even further. I'm going to press the camera button again to go back to my live view. So there we are. And you'll notice, I mean, I can really get super close in there on that font. And I'm just using that middle button again to zoom in and out. I'm going to show you now using button number 5, which is your contrast button. Look at how this makes that font pop. I mean, it's super impressive, I think.
I love this camera.
Yeah, right. It's such a good quality camera. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So and I can zoom in even further. And this thing gets you right. And this is like size 8 font. It's so small, but that's zooming you in. Now I'm going to press that contrast button again. Cycles you through a couple of the presets that we have in there, just to give you an idea of that. And at any moment, I can hit that right-hand button to the right button of that, which is button number 6, which brings you back to natural color mode. And again, that's going to show you, here we are with the map of the weather. If you wanted to get that find function that Justine and I were talking about earlier, what you're going to do is press and hold. So I'm going to zoom in just to get in close to something here. I'm going to press and hold button number 6, which is that natural color button. And you'll notice it zooms out and it gives me kind of a little plus sign in the middle that's showing me where I want to be at. So what if I wanted to look at the moon cycle there of rise, the moon rise and moon set? I focus on that. I let go of that button and it zooms me in to the magnification level that I was at. That is what I like. And that brings me right back into that on the page. Again, press and hold that button 6. It's going to bring me back out. If I wanted to come over here and look at today's air quality, this is really helpful. And boom, it just lets me right back in to that font, or to that magnification level that I'm at, that I wanted to be at. What if this is visually cluttered? I mean, this is a lot of text right here, I'd say, right? With all of this stuff. I'm going to press and hold button number 7 right in the middle. And the first thing it does is it gives me that guideline. How nice, because now I'm looking Flagstaff, Arizona is 67, 36, 67, 33. I can easily follow that along if I'm reading in a book. And I can I'll pull up here some text in a book just to show you how nice that looks, that if we were reading text.
Yeah, it's nice. If you wanted to block out a certain column.
And to do that, so I can rotate this, I'm turning that button number 7, just like I would the magnification button in the middle. So I'm just rotating it like a dial. I can move that guideline up or down. Now, if I press up on that button, it actually thickens that line and makes it wider. And I can make that wide there. Now, pressing down on that button brings it back to being a thin button, or a thin line, excuse me. If I press to the right, it actually switches to a vertical line. Press to the right again, it actually does masking. If I press up on this, it widens. If I press down, it makes that line thinner. So you can see here, we can actually cut out a lot of that clutter. And if I zoom in, I actually can just get that line of text right there. If I change my color contrasts, it's going to change my color contrast for me.
Hey,
And
can you go back to the newspaper and then
yeah,
show the, just like one column, kind of
I
like show the masking of how you could just narrow it down to just one column at a time?
I sure can. So, oh, sorry, I went wrong way here. I'm going to widen that. And there we go with just that there. So to give you the idea, or to give you the visual, I'm going to press and hold button number 7 to get rid of that. So there's all of the text on the screen. I'm
Yeah.
going to press and hold that again. And it goes back to my last preset, which was the masking in a vertical format. And you can see here, if I rotate that, I can move that to the left or the right.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
Nice.
yeah, oh,
Yeah.
gosh, you're so welcome. Thank you.
So I could just look at, yeah, just one column or one line.
And again, you can magnify in on that. And I saw there someone just asked a question, and sorry, let me click. So I switched from horizontal to vertical by actually pressing on the right-hand side of that button number 7, the super function key. What that does is it just toggles me between my horizontal guideline, vertical guideline, horizontal masking, vertical masking. So that's pressing to the left.
So the left and right,
Yep.
pressing right, left or right on that button cycles through it, and then up and down moves the window, right? Or
Up
the-
and down widens it or makes it thin. Don't you wish that
Okay.
like dieting was this easy? If I just pressed it down, I could
Yeah.
lose 5 pounds, right? Up and down widens or
I wish.
makes it wider or thinner. And then rotating it, just like a
If you-
dial, like on the radio dial,
Yeah, if you turn the knob.
it moves it up or down the page. So I'm gonna switch over to,
Okay, so turning it moves up and down, but
yes,
the button
turning that moves
left
it up or down.
cycles you through the
Yes.
vertical, horizontal. Okay.
Yep.
I got it.
So up and down, I want my line thicker. I want my line thinner. I want to move it up or down. I'm just going to rotate. If I want horizontal or vertical, I press to the right or the left to cycle through. Yep. Great question, and happy to go over that for sure. So that is your buttons that I wanted to just cover and go over again. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of the masking there for a second. And I'm going to keep this newspaper article there for a second, or the weather. I'm going to now press that middle button, which is your magnification button. But if I press that, it brings me to menu. And this is where you're going to customize things in here. So our first option when we press and hold that middle button brings us to color mode. If you wanted to select a different one, you're just going to rotate that middle button to choose. To select the option of color mode, I'm going to actually press the middle button, the zoom wheel again. This brings up all 35 color options or color modes. So you get a visual representation of them on the screen. And so what this is doing is, you know, the first one is going to be white text, black background, then black text on a white background, so on and so forth. You'll notice that some of these are highlighted in red. So there are, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, and then 8 being your natural color. So as Justine mentioned earlier, where she stumped all of you, the 8 presets out of the box are this top row, which are all highlighted in red right now, and then true color mode. You can decide which ones you want to add in here. So if you had a student that wanted pink and black, I just go over to that. So you'll notice I'm rotating that middle wheel, and the one that I'm on is highlighted in yellow. When I press it, you'll notice it highlights it in red and puts a red box around it. So it turns it from a gray box to a red box. I'm going to go over and get rid of all of these other ones that were preset and set in there. by just highlighting them and pressing that middle button. So now the only ones that are chosen and selected are black and pink and black. And now I'm going to rotate my wheel in the middle, the zoom button, down to save. So you'll notice default's in yellow now. I rotate it to the right, it's in save, or I can go to extend. I'm going to select save, hit that middle button. Now I'm back in my live view, and I'm going to hit the button number 5 to go through my color modes. You'll notice here you have a pink background with black text, black background with pink text. Now, if I hit that button again, it brings me back to live color because we only have those two options available. Those are the only two we selected. So now I'm going to come back in here, press and hold that middle button, press it again to select color mode. You're back into your 35 color options. If I rotate to the left, I can come in here. I see some clapping hands. Thanks, that's awesome. I can come down to the bottom and choose default. When I click default, it automatically defaults me back. So I'm going to come back into color mode. It defaulted me back to those defaulted 8 or 7, I should say, plus the true color mode. If I wanted to go to extend, just rotating this all the way. If I hit extend, it actually brings me back to true color here. It brings me back to my live image. But if I come back into pressing and holding menu, color mode, you'll notice that all of these buttons are now selected, every single one. So that's going to bring you through 35 color options, which is way too many. But if you wanted to, you can check that. So I had somebody that just asked me to, can you check the red and blue? So I'm going to go back to default for a second, and I'm going to press the menu here. Come back to color mode. So they asked for red and blue, right? So I'm going to come down here and select red and blue. I'm going to go back up to the top and get rid of all my other options just to make it easier to just, that'll just give us those options, the red and blue options. And then I'm going to save. Now I'm going to select, and there's your red and blue. So that's your blue text on a red background. Now that's your red text on a blue background. And that's in a newspaper view. If I wanted to, you're very welcome, no problem. I'm glad you asked. If I wanted to come back into, say, text here, this is, a text on a book. And we could also bring in here if we wanted to do like a worksheet. So depending on what the student is doing, here is something that would be cursive writing. So if they wanted to practice cursive writing and that coloration was really good for them, there you go. If we want to come back to true color at any moment in time, we hit that button number 6 and we're back to a live true color. So that is your worksheets, text, so on and so forth. I'm going to press and hold that middle menu button again. I want to cover something that we didn't mention, but I think it's important as your power save mode. Many of you out there are probably using this in a class. When you go to power save mode, you have a couple options in here. You can have the LCD screen go off automatically after 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or not at all. For me, when I'm demoing this at conferences, I switch all of these to not use on the far right-hand side because I don't want this to time out when I'm sitting at a booth demoing it all day. And a classroom might be a little different because if they're not using it, it's then going to save your battery by having that go, automatically off. And to select that, you just rotate that middle button and press it in to select which one you want. If you want the unit to auto power down, you can go 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or not at all. And again, just rotate the middle button and press your option to select it. Once you've selected those, to go back in the menu options, just press and hold that middle button again, and it's going to bring you back to your main menu. Next is our zoom ratio. So this is pretty cool. I think this is a neat feature to have in here. You as the teacher are going to know what this should be at, or you as the user if you're using this product. So we'll start out again. We've got some text on the screen. I've got text below it, I should say, a book. I'm going to hit on the zoom ratios. You can select what magnification range you want this to start out at. So if you've got a student that needs to start out at a higher magnification level, you can customize this to start out at 2.5x magnification and go to 50x. To give you a visual of how this looks, by default, it was at 1.2. I'm going to click on 2.5 to fix 50x. Now I'm magnified out all the way right now. This is the as low as I can go in magnification when looking at this book. I'm going to press the middle button again to get to my menu. I'm going to go to zoom ratio, select that. I'm going to now choose 1.2x just so you can get an idea. There is 1.2x. That's all the way out. So you can see the difference there. Now I'm getting more text on the screen. I'm able to see more of that book, but I have to rotate in to magnify. Now, if I press and hold that, go to zoom ratio and go back to 2.5, this is my starting point of magnification is right here. So you'll notice you're zoomed in automatically closer to begin with and to start with. And it's just a nice option to have depending on the individual, what magnification they need, what their vision needs are. So you've got 3 options in there for the zoom ratio: 1.2 to 20, 1.8 to 30, and 2.5 to 50. I'm going to come back to 1.2 to 20. I'm going to press and hold this again. So that's your zoom ratio. The next option in the menu is your LED brightness. I'm going to press that. This is just going to control your LED lights on it. So you've got multiple levels of brightness on there, and select what brightness you need. Press that middle button and hold it again, and that's going to save that as the default. Next option there is reset. Reset would be used if you're transitioning this to a different student. So say a student graduates and you're giving this to a new student, you can come in here to reset, and reset will reset everything back to default mode. So now you're back to what this product was when you first took it out of the box. And that's nice to have. I'll give you some time to type questions in the chat or comments. What I'm going to do while we do that is just show you some different options. So just give you some, different views of how this might be used, because I think that oftentimes, we think of school or we think of work, we might not think of fun stuff. So right now I have, so someone, Renee, great question. How do you save the zoom ratio? So press and hold that menu button, right? Go into zoom ratio, choose which one you want, and just click or press on the middle button, and that automatically is now saved as your option. So that's your default now, is that. So good question. I've just got some thick lined paper in here, low vision paper, which is really nice. I've got a 2020 pen. And so you can see here, if I were to write, so very easy. We can zoom in, we can change our color contrasts. So very easy to write. Great if you're writing cards, you're writing for school. Another thing I wanted to show is, Betsy Ann will laugh, I'm like a senior citizen in a young man's body, but if we're playing bingo, right? You've got this bingo card that's red. Well, what if you're colorblind, right? So you've got this bingo card. I can zoom in to it. I can also easily change to different contrasts here. So if there's a certain contrast color that sticks out nicer for me, I can do that. I can also increase or decrease that brightness a little bit there and decide to go back to my true color mode at any moment in time. And that's just really nice. So that's something fun you would do, right? to show you the quality as well, zooming in on colorations and stuff here. I'm trying to find a colorful picture here of, so this is just a bird book, birds of Eastern and Central North America. And you can easily zoom in, examine the bird's colorations. I mean, you can get in there really close. And then if you were looking at the text, quickly and easily switch over to your text. Again, I'm playing with my magnification. I can also change my contrast, and I can increase or decrease that brightness a little bit to help cut down on any glare. And there you go. I showed earlier your cursive handwriting, also math. So if I come back here to true color, and I wanted to look at math equations, I can zoom in, change my contrast at any moment in time. And look at how nice that is there. That just pops right off the screen. And if we want to come back to our true color mode at any time, we can come back to our true color mode. And if we wanted to answer the questions, we can write underneath this easily. You know, adults using this. What if you are looking at cooking, you want to do a recipe? Just gonna zoom out here for a second. Crispy orange beef. That makes me a little hungry. Crispy orange beef, so we can get a visual of what that recipe should look like, right? And then I can come over here and look at the recipe, easily zoom into that, and at any time change my contrast. And it's just going to toggle us through the presets back to live color, and you can get in there as close as you want. So any other questions, comments? I'm going to switch back to, if not, I'll switch back to my live camera and get us out of the Jupyter view. Any comments? Let's see. The camera doesn't have the camera. So the Jupyter will remember, someone asked about the camera memory. So it remembers the last magnification level you were at. It remembers the last contrast you were at. It doesn't have storage as far as memory of images, but it does remember what levels of magnification, what contrasts, and what guideline or masking you last used. The only thing you can do is freeze frame. So I can freeze frame. So like right now, I pressing that third button in, you'll see the camera button that pops up there. And now I'm freeze framed, and I can then zoom in further from that freeze frame, and using that button on the right-hand side, I can pan around that image. And then by pressing the freeze frame button again, it just brings me back to my live image there. Someone asked, can this be connected to a smartboard or a laptop being used? Yeah, so I've got mine connected right now with an HDMI cable, actually to a video capture card, which you can get from Amazon. And then that plugs into my USB, but you can also connect this with an HDMI out to smartboard, and it does not do input. So you can't project from your smartboard to the Jupyter, but you could project from the Jupyter to the smartboard. And I'll tell you, there's a TVI out in Washington that I work with closely as well. And every Halloween, she does a cool experiment with this where the kids, you know, are carving pumpkins, and they're using the Jupyter to look inside the pumpkin and see the seeds and see all the guts of the pumpkin. And, you know, the kids just find it so cool because they're able to, you know, even the students that are not low vision get excited because you can zoom in and see really closely what the pumpkin seeds look like and what the insides of the pumpkins, you know, what's inside the pumpkin with that high definition camera. So it's really cool. And any other questions before we jump back to the slides and finish up some of the slide deck?
I'm not seeing anything else.
All right, switching back to me, you can Awesome. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. I hope that was helpful to show.
So a question came in, I think, about saving to like being able to look at WhatsApp. So could you connect potentially your Jupyter to your phone and be able to look at apps on your phone really clearly using the Jupyter screen?
Yeah, so if you wanted to put your phone underneath there, I've had students put an iPad or a phone under there. You can do that as well. Yep, you can absolutely put your phone under there and you can zoom into your phone and enlarge what you would see. Whatever's on your phone would then be enlarged on the Jupyter screen, correct? Yep. You wouldn't plug it in, but you would basically just put it underneath and use the camera on the Jupyter itself to zoom in.
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome, thank you.
All right, Paul, we're ready for this poll.
All right, perfect. This is our final poll question of the day. So we want to know which of the following customized magnification levels are provided on the Jupyter. Choices are 1.2x to 20x, 1.8x to 30x, 2.5x to 50x, or all of the above.
All right, I'm not seeing anything else in the chat while we're answering this poll question. This might be the most challenging one of the day because we reviewed this a little bit ago. All right. With 53% participation, I'll review our early results. Which of the following customized magnification levels are provided on the Jupyter? Majority at 88% said all of the above. 0% chose only 1.2x to 20x. 4% chose 1.8x to 30x, and 7% chose 2.5x to 50x. What was the correct response?
Justine, you want to answer that one?
I think it was all of the above.
You are right. Yeah, it was all of the above. So you have 1.2 to 20, 1.8 to 30, or 2.5 to 50. So you can customize this depending on what the end user needs to start out with. It's nice.
Yeah, I was trying to find in the user manual, and my magnifier on my computer's messing up. But I think the 1.8x to, what does that say?
30x.
30. I think that one is when you're in the freeze, when you freeze the image. That's what you can use in that magnification range when you freeze the image.
So the magnification range lets you get in even further than that. So you can go, so those three are for the live, and then you can do, if you freeze frame it, you can actually go up to like 250x magnification, because you'd max out at, say, the 50x, freeze frame it, and then you can further zoom in to 250x. Remember, so yeah, it's crazy to even think that. And I will say that a lot of people, and I saw even at the beginning poll, a lot of people do use it to pan around on the image. So a lot of people do use that freeze frame and then use that button number 7 on the far right-hand side to kind of pan around the image. So it's pretty cool.
So that does the distance magnification and the near.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
We had a question come in the chat. I can't find the radio button. So Melinda, did you mean the zoom ratio, or?
I think she was talking about the polls.
Oh, the poll question, maybe. Yeah.
Gotcha. I apologize for that. As always, you can always drop your responses to the chat, responses to the polls in the chat. All right, so we're on to discoveries.
I was going to say a corny joke, Melinda, and say that video killed the radio star, or the radio button. Sorry, that was cheesy.
That's great.
Back to you, Paul.
That's a great 80s joke. I love it. That's fantastic. Stole my thunder. So what have we discovered today? So line and mask, great way to limit the visual clutter on a page. You've got a busy document. a lot of text, and you don't want to see too much of it. You need to limit how much is there. The line and mask feature is a great way to really do that, so you can read that document a lot better. Color contrast can really help someone experiencing a lot of eye fatigue. It can reduce your eye strain and just help you to view whatever you're looking at in a way that's much easier for you to figure it all out. Jupyter allows anybody, the student or whoever's using it, to the ability to perform a distance view of the teacher or whatever the teacher has up on the board. You can then switch back to whatever task you have at hand. So multitasking is definitely something you can do. And finally, Jupyter is a very powerful, feature-rich desktop magnifier. It's portable, has the ability to work with people of all different age groups and abilities. And we're just very happy at the many different things that you can do with one product. Let's get to our last slide. Let's give you one last view of the Jupyter. The price for everybody, quota, non-quota, anyone that's interested, $3,599. It has been a very popular product for us, quota sales, non-quota sales, for quite a long time. So we appreciate everyone's love of this product, and we just want to make sure that we are able to let you know about all the different features of it so that you can continue to get as much use out of it as possible.
All right, and before we wrap up with our closing code, just want to give everybody an opportunity to ask any more questions. We can also review those as we've got some time left in this webinar. Mike or Justine, if there's anything you'd like to go back and look at again, we've certainly got some time.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, comments, feel free. We'll stick around and answer them for sure. I was going to say, I might be able to, it would take me a couple minutes just to set up. I didn't have the best setup here to do distance view, but I could theoretically, I just have to open my window and hold the Jupyter there, but I can show like the distance if anybody really wanted to see distance on it as well. But, you know, you can also take our word for it. It's phenomenal. The distance on this camera is absolutely phenomenal. Again, with that 1080p high definition camera, you can really get in there.